Okay, so what are we going to talk about today? What's our agenda? First of all, we'll see what's real manipulation. What is the difference between manipulation, persuasion, and influence? Then we'll discuss about the persuasion travel of the customer. So what is the so-called persuasion journey mapping, some motivational patterns, which are called here carrots and sticks, and see, hear, and do. But you will see later on what it's all about. These are, let's say, the names that I use here metaphorically, but I'll explain the psychological background later on. Okay, so these are the topics. Now about me, why I have the right to talk about this. My name is Zoran Metkosh, and I work here at Perfecta BDI as a business development consultant and growth mindset coach. I used to work as a translator, project manager, operations manager, business developer for LSPs for more than 20 years. And by education, I'm a linguist, an MBA, and a professional coach. So all those combinations, that are needed basically in marketing, sales, and leadership for LSPs. I'm in the translation industry in general. Okay, now that you are all here and you cannot basically talk with me because I will present it and we'll start the Q&A session in the end. But until the end, we can communicate non-verbally. So there are some rules here that we can have for non-verbal communication. You can raise your hand at the end if you want to talk. You can use yes, no answer as needed in a chat or poll. You can, of course, use emoticons as you wish. And in a chat poll, you can share your ideas and thoughts with us. Okay, I hope this is all clear. And now, let me see. I will launch the first poll. I'm going to ask you, how do you feel today? Okay. So the question is, I actually see it in the screen. What one word best describes your current mood? You can type it in your screen and submit. Okay, motivated, excited, love it, because this is all about motivation today. Hungry, okay. I understand you completely. Okay, good. Okay, fantastic. Okay, great. So far we have 5 responses. That's why I wanted to hear excited and motivated, because I'm also excited to talk about these topics today. So the first thing is the definition of marketing. So where is marketing in your business? I like to show this metaphor of a table where we see, for example, a table with 4 legs that, let's say, bring money to the company, whereas marketing is one leg. So this means if you basically don't work that much on your marketing, the table can get rickety and money can fall off the table. So that's why it's important to invest and develop your marketing at all times. And when we start talking about marketing, customers are basically the most important people here. Customers are always the heroes in our marketing, and we, as translation agencies or any other agencies for that matter, or any other company, are basically as guides. So in this way, when we position customers first, we achieve the so-called customer centricity. And how can you get there? In your brainstorming process, when you are working on your marketing communications, first of all, you ask yourselves, what problem do you solve for your customers with your translation? What results do you create for your customers? How exactly do you get the result? And how will your customers' business be better with your translation? Okay, so this is the starting point. Now we go to our topic. I'm not going to discuss other things, but let's say we'll talk about influence and persuasion and very important techniques. I mean, in communication in general, but especially in business and marketing, sales and management. Some people, think that everything we do in marketing, in sales, whatever we say, that it's manipulation. Well, that's completely wrong. because we have to distinguish between influence and persuasion and manipulation. What is basically influence? Influence is something, for example, that we convey to other people with our behavior, consciously or unconsciously. So, for example, it means that if you, let's say, bring a bottle of some juice to your office, some people might be influenced by that and buy it as well. Or they can be influenced, for example, to, let's say, have the same hair color as you. So influence is something very natural. This is what we experience every day wherever we go. There are impulses that, affect us. And persuasion, on the other hand, is, let's say, a deliberate act. So when we are persuading somebody, we are trying to tell them, especially in marketing, that we are the best solution for their, let's say, needs, wants, or fears, or whatever we do to resolve the problem. Because, marketing and sales and leadership revolves around resolving problems. That's why influence and persuasion, as, let's say, phenomena, they belong to the so-called relationship marketing. So this is, in today's business, extremely popular because we want to develop a relationship with our customers. So it's not like before that we had like TV and commercials and it was the only way, or we sent, I don't know, a brochure or a leaflet via snail mail. Nowadays, whatever you do on your socials, on your website, there are so many, let's say, channels where you can reach your customers. You're developing a relationship. You're giving something useful to them so that they can really feel that you are a reliable person for their translation services. On the other hand, manipulation is something negative, something that we want to avoid. And in this group, let's say we have a few categories. I'm going to name just a few. For example, manipulation is playing with guilt. Let's say, for example, if you were a good friend, you would translate that for me. That is, implying guilt. Emotional blackmail. Somebody can say, if you don't translate this for me, I'm going to lose my job. So basically, emotionally blackmailing us so that we feel bad. Or playing a victim. You know how much I sacrificed for you and you want to charge your translation? So they want to be a victim in this case, and they want something for us that we cannot provide. For example, we want to charge because it's our job. So it's not something that we can do it also for free, of course, but if it's our decision. If somebody wants to extort it, they resort to such activities. Or, for example, a flattery is also a kind of manipulation. When somebody tells you, you're such a great translator, can you translate it for free? Okay? And anger. Another sort of manipulation, for example, when somebody says, okay, if you don't translate it for me, my boss will be mad at me, or I will be mad at you. So these are, let's say, behaviors, or to the tone, or let's say constructions in your copywriting or whatever text in any marketing communication that should be avoided. Or these are the examples so that you can recognize manipulation. So now let me sum up these differences. Influence is something that you do every day wherever you go, just whatever you write or whatever you video or every picture on your socials. Persuasion is if you want to approach somebody deliberately and persuade them to do something, for example, or motivate them. It can be your kids or your coworkers or your customers. And manipulation is evoking negative feelings. So if you feel bad about it, that means that it's manipulation. So it's not influence. Okay. Influence has been a topic since the ancient times. Even Aristotle used it. He called it the rhetoric triangle, because in rhetoric in those ancient times and in acting, for example, people used, let's say, 3 principles. The first one was called ethos, where you convince somebody with your character that you're, let's say, the right person that has something that can help another person. Logos, it means that you use your rationality, let's say some figures and statistics or whatever. Now, not in the ancient times. And pathos, it means convincing somebody with emotion. So you can, let's say, bring yourself to an emotional state or tell an emotional story so that you convince somebody to do something. Okay. Nowadays, we have another interesting concept that was basically coined by Professor Robert Cialdini, professor of social behavior, who is also famous for his book Influence from the 80s and 90s. This happens nowadays very often, and it's used widely in marketing. Basically, we are persuading people. So with some certain context that we are, let's say, that we can help them with our services. So we're basically trying to get their attention. And as you might know, attention is the most expensive currency that we can have. You know, how many companies are fighting for your attention for 2 seconds in their feed so that you read something or that you see, I don't know, an ad or even read, you know, their blog or whatever, you know. So the fight for attention is everywhere. And what we can use in this fight, you know, if you want to show that we are also here. First of all, we can get the attention through colors, and some colors, for example, can denote different feelings. Blue, for example, trust. You can, I don't know, use whatever scale you want. You can use an image to attract somebody, or let's say certain symbols, depending on your target group of customers. You can use the quote because you can see there is a nice quote. Maybe they will stop because of it, or you can use any, let's say, other context that would be appropriate. Why is this important? Because normally we buy emotionally. I will answer the questions later on after I finish the presentation. I see that somebody has asked me about the colors, but we basically justify our emotions with logic. You know, this is, let's say, a widely popular statement, but it's also been scientifically proved. Let's in neuromarketing. I like to use this quote by Dr. Andre Morris, who says 70% of all decisions are made unconscious. No, it's 100%, but some decisions will be post-rationalized more than the others. Okay, so this means that we have to be also very careful, you know, with the context where we start our persuasion journey with the customers, you know. So be careful about everything from colors, whatever you put, it can affect the buyer's decision. Okay. Now the persuasion. Now we've seen, for example, that we have this concept of persuasion. What is basically persuasion? So how do we tell to somebody or we motivate them to do something for us? First of all, one of the most important, let's say, approaches is adapting to certain behavioral patterns. Because, you know, we all have different triggers in our motivational, let's say, systems. And as persons, basically in our brain, we all have two systems. Let's say, I don't know if you read the Daniel Kahneman's book, Thinking Fast and Slow, who described it excellently, where we have, let's say, in our brain, system 1 and system 2. System 1 is rational and system 2 is all the things that are irrational. So whenever we are communicating our message, we're basically sending it to two persons, to two systems. That's why it's extremely important to know, you know, what motivates certain person, you know, whether you're a manager, if you want, let's say, motivate your people to do something, to reach a goal, a project that is, I don't know, extensive, or you want your persons, or you want your customers to buy your products or services. So these patterns are, let's say, contextually dependent, and it can be, I don't know, from pleasure or pain, or they like same or different things, and etc. You are more persuasive if you spotlight problems and pain points in your marketing. So this means whatever you do in your marketing, the customer is the hero of your story. So you talk about their problems and their pain points and how you can achieve them. So you are basically the guide in this entire story. Cognitive bias is extremely important because you know, we all have some let's say kind of systematic errors in thinking and judgments that we make. It means, for example, I don't know if you know the cognitive bias, confirmation bias. When you want to buy a car, we see, let's say a Toyota, we see Toyotas everywhere. Social proof. is also one approach where, for example, you always indicate that somebody else bought something. It's like, for example, when you see a restaurant and there are many people, you say, okay, this must be good because there are so many people. So it's like when you put on your website, okay, I don't know, 20 companies trusted us with their content and we translate for them. I don't know, 75 of managers of this industry in our country chose us as their translation providers, etc. So that you know that there are some other people that prove basically that you can do it. Stirring wishes and desires. So once you know the wishes and desires, of course, and problems and pain points, you let's say somehow kind of exaggerate those wishes and desires that you caught your customers' attention, because normally people have a few, let's say, seconds to spend on your website or on your social. So you know you have to write it a little bit dramatically. Showing empathy and authority. What does this mean? Empathy means that you understand that you can put yourselves in the customer's shoes, and it's the so-called second position. So you know how they feel, and that you, let's say, you produce cognitive empathy if you cannot really feel the emotions. So there are like different kinds of empathies as well. And by authority, here I mean showing that you have knowledge and experience, that you have some, I don't know, certificates, degrees, or that you are, I don't know, certified according to, I don't know, some ISO standards or whatever, and experiences. So when you talk about the experiences with others or testimony, let's say experience of others with you, you are basically you also become more persuasive. Okay. I hope that I'm not too fast. Yes, and now, in doing all this, we also know that sometimes, you know, we can end up in an ethical dilemma. You know, is this what we are doing ethical? Because, you know, we all know that sometimes we have a bad feeling about some commercials or some posts of certain, or for example, if you write something, we just have to be sure that we are on the right side and that we are happy with what we are, with the message we want to get across. So here I like to use, for example, this ethical framework from BCom, Book Business Communication by Lehman and Defret, where you ask yourself whether an action is illegal or ethical, and illegal and unethical. So of course you don't go there. I don't need to provide examples for this, I guess. Illegal and ethical. For example, this is the case of, let's say, allowed minimum amount for, let's say, some servants, civil servants, etc. Legal and unethical. Okay, it means that an action is like, I don't know, breaking promises, or let's say cheating on your spouse. I mean, I'm not implying, but this is so that you understand the concept. And legal and ethical. So legal and ethical is basically the space where we want to be. Okay, how can you resolve your ethical dilemma? So if you get there, I would suggest also this, let's say, questionnaire, where you ask yourself the 6 questions. Is the proposed action legal? What are the benefits and costs to the people involved? Would you want this action to be a universal standard and appropriate for everyone? If your action appeared on television or others learn about it, would you be proud? Would you want the same to happen to you? And 6, ask the opinion of a wise friend with no investment in the outcome. So this questionnaire helps you, you know, grapple with ethical dilemmas, but also other dilemmas. And I think it's quite practical, of course. If for legality and other stuff, you can ask your legal expert, etc. This is just, let's say, a quick check for you personally. Okay, now that we've resolved our ethical dilemmas, I would like to talk about those linguistic behavioral patterns. The first thing that I mentioned as one of the most important, let's say, persuasion approaches. Here we have 6 ads with different triggers. Now, I would like you to read them, and I will send a poll. Just let me see. Okay, and ask you which ad resonated with you most. Which one, let's say, would persuade you to purchase translations from, let's say, a translation agency that is specialized in legal translation. Okay, so the number 1 is expand your business internationally with punctual legal translations. Number 2, avoid lost deals because of poor legal translation. Number 3, our procedures do not allow for costly mistakes in legal translation. Number 4, hear what others say about our legal translation. Number 5, 1 page for free to make sure we are the right legal translation partner for you. And number 6, read a case study to see how our legal translation helped a law firm with a massive deal. Okay. Now let me see. I'm going to launch the poll. So I would kindly ask you to type the number. Which ad resonated most with you? Which one you thought is most persuasive or credible? So 4 and 6 leading. Mistakes in English. Okay, 4, 8. Okay. So we received 10 responses. So number 4 is the winner. I will say 11. You still have? Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, I will close it now. So we see that number 4 is the winner. Okay, 8, 5, 6. Okay, we didn't have 7 and 8. We had from 1 to 6. So let's say 4, 5, and 6. So these are, let's say, the patterns, that we all have in our mind, and are basically contextually dependent. So in this context, number 4 was the winner. It's the method, it's the pattern called here. And now I'll explain what that means. The first 2 were from like the toward and away from pattern. Toward pattern means that those people in business context are basically motivated by benefits. So that's why you can use here the words like this kind of language: attain, have, enable, advantages, benefits. Here's what you could accomplish, because they respond better to this perspective. So, for example, our company will enable you to get fantastic translations. Away from, those are people that, let's say, respond to phrases such as won't have to, prevent, fix, avoid, get rid of, let's find out what's wrong, there'll be no problems. For example, so you can write in your copy or, I don't know, blog or your website or whatever, there'll be no problems with your business because we are, let's say, a great translation partner for you. You won't have to translate it by yourself. You will prevent lost deals because of bad translations if you cooperate with us. So this is basically pleasure, getting pleasure, or avoiding pain, let's say, mindset. So, but it doesn't mean that, for example, those people have in every context this mindset. In a business concept, for example, it can be toward mentality. But, for example, in your personal relationships or any other, you can be away from. There are also, let's say, some professions that are more away from, that are focused on resolving problems and troubleshooting, for example, such as medicine, and toward, let's say, professions such as sales and marketing, because there are people who like to have benefits and goals, From people, they like to avoid, let's say, working on weekends. That's why they're motivated to do something or buy something. Okay, I hope I explained it properly. And the other pattern that I wanted to explain is called the convincer representation. So it's called see, hear, do, and read. Because there are a certain percentage of people who is convinced by the things that they see. They need to see real pictures, they need to see procedures, graphic or graphs. So make sure you include all of those in your marketing communications. Here, those are people who are convinced if somebody tells them about you, if they hear your voice, for example, they would like to call you on the phone to make sure that you are the right partner. Or, for example, they read something about you in the testimonials. Do people, they basically need to do that with you. They have to experience it. They need a demo or they need a test translation, for example. And the read people, they will be convinced that you are the perfect partner for them if they read a case study or some, let's say, a longer explanation of how you do your business so that they are convinced in a sensible way. Okay. So basically, we're coming to an end of this webinar. I hope I managed to explain some basic concepts of persuasion. Now I would like to let you know that we have part 2, which is also 30 minutes on the 30th of March. So we'll continue this story if you enjoyed it. But also what we have is another webinar, which is a bit longer, and it takes an hour and a half. And this one is paid. And we also have our academy, basically where we delve into marketing in detail with you. So it takes 3 days. And we start, let's say, from marketing strategy to going, let's say, where you are now and where you want to be with your website, socials, and other marketing channels. Okay, now let's wrap this up. So what have we talked about today? What are the most important tips? I would say influence daily by being a good example to people around you and your customers. Persuade ethically. If you have some quandaries or doubts, you can always use the quick ethical dilemma resolution questions. And never manipulate in your communication.
Profecta BDI, your trustworthy guide.